Welcome to the 29th episode of the Most Serious Podcast. In today's episode, a former guest of the show returns, Mr. Joe Morrison. He's one of the finest TV anchors of football out there, and we talked about two of my favorite topics of conversation, which are football and life. We talk about how things have changed in the context of football since the last time we spoke, the crazy transfers that happened this season, the takeover of Newcastle, which was speculated to be around $300 million. We also talk about the prospect of changing the format of football to make it more exciting and engaging for the younger audiences. We also discussed perspective and authenticity. Why is it so hard for people to be their authentic self? Why do we always feel the fear and anxiety due to social media? Why do always things have to be perfect for us? All of this and a lot more in this episode. I always enjoy talking to Mr. Joe Morrison. I hope you like the conversation today. Let's get into the episode now. Mr. Joe Morrison is back on the Most Serious Podcast. I really loved talking to him last time, and that was a very interesting conversation, especially the later part of it. Welcome, Joe Morrison. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Joe?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm also doing fine. So the last time we talked, and things are now a bit different. We changed the setup a little bit, and the context of the world has also pretty much changed. Last time we were talking about, we started off with Chelsea versus Manchester City Champions League final, and there was no Newcastle takeover back then. FC Barcelona, wow. I think was still decent. Is that right? I don't know.
Goodness, is that all in the space of 6 months? Is it? Well, 7 months.
And Messi was still in Barcelona. Ronaldo was still in Juventus.
Yeah, wow. The world really has turned, hasn't it, in the last 6 or 7 months? Wow. Now that you put it like that, it's shocking. You have to really think about it. Wow.
It's crazy. And to think that this all happened, the timeline is so short, and all of these crazy things, and not just football wise, in general also, the world saw another wave of COVID and whatnot. It's been crazy, man. I don't know. This is a weird time that we are living in.
It is a weird time. Don't get me started on COVID. Is it real? Yes, absolutely. It's real. I've had it twice. But it's one of those things that we have to deal with, and the world has to keep turning, and governments and idiots and people that think that the best solution to everything is to lock yourself inside your own house and not face the world is just deluded, in my opinion. And it's just my opinion. Because there are many challenges out there. I mean, the world is a dangerous place, but we have to live in it and we have to get on, and that's life, So I'm not one of these who believes in lockdown, shutting ourselves away. We need to be exposed in all aspects. We need to be exposed to the dangers of the world. So, there you go. In a nutshell, I don't want to go off on that tangent because I'll go down a rabbit hole, and end up here for days.
This is something that I totally relate and agree with you. It's been such a weird transition from, and I remember, I'm still in college, and this is my last semester of college going on right now. And I came back when I was in my third semester, I think fourth semester, and it's been almost 2 years now. In a month, it'll be 2 years since I came back home. And wow. It's just been weird, man. Living with your friends, hanging out, meeting at least 25, 30 people in a day, to just seeing those similar 2-3 faces again. Yeah, it's been crazy.
I think as well, obviously there's a lot more of this, Zoom and that kind of interaction, which I don't think is healthy. We are humans who we are descended from animals.
Yeah.
That physical interaction is really important. So, and I worry what the long-term effect is. A generation, in particular your generation, have lost 2 years of, what's the mental health issues that come out of this? You're seeing domestic violence numbers rising because it's a frustrating time. Anyone who's locked in the smaller the space, the more the damage that can be done. So yeah, I worry about the long-term effects, things that we won't realize maybe for years, But anyway, I don't want to get on to that. That's a different
True,
thing.
Yeah. And long term, from football context wise, also I was reading this article recently that the president of Real Madrid, I don't know if this is correct or not, but they were discussing about, that thing happened with the whole Super League creation and everything. So they were talking about like how the attention span is dropping, and young fans are now more interested in just watching highlights or key moments of the game. So they're planning this revenue. They're planning this model, which in which you will be able to watch the last 15 minutes of game, because apparently that's where the juicier part is. And they're thinking that this would be something that would be successful in the long term. What are your views on this?
Great question. Look, if you just talk about the last 15 minutes, you're going down the basketball route. At the very beginning of my career, one of the first sports I had to cover as a junior reporter was basketball. Okay. And I'm going to let you into a little secret here, a guilty secret. There were times during the season where I would turn up because I had to do a very, very short report, and it was for radio.
Yeah,
I had to do this summary report of what happened in the game. And because it was so short, I forget what the length was, 30 seconds or something. I used to turn up on the odd occasion, not all occasions, which is very unprofessional of me. I used to turn up halfway through the game, or sometimes at the end of the third quarter, because in basketball, quite often the points would just ebb and flow, be just a couple of points in it. And then in the last quarter, all hell would break loose and you'd have a result. So it's kind of like you're sort of saying, right, well, the stats show that, the most exciting part of a match is in the last 15 minutes. So then we're going down. That's a very slippery slope. That's a very slippery slope. Why don't you instead, I'm just putting this out there, and I know you know how to press my buttons, so I'm going to get my blood boiling. Why don't the bloody suits, why don't the suits start looking at the game itself and the format of the game and start to think about, is there anything that we can tweak or improve? I'm not talking about wholesale changes, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily, all singing, all dancing. I'm just saying, is there something that we can tweak and improve? And I'll tell you why. Cricket was, is the word decline the right word? Maybe not decline, but certainly the powers that be in cricket were looking at the format. And I'm going back a couple of decades now. Actually 3 decades. They were looking at the format and saying, right, we have county cricket, we have test cricket, and we have not a lot else. So then, 50 overs game came into being, short form of the game. We now have the Big Bash, what's the one that happened in the
IPL.
UK last year? No, well, we have the IPL as well, but the 100, is it the 100? So basically what they've done is, quite smartly, in my opinion, have looked at the product and said, how can we reformat this with keeping the essence of the game, keeping cricket fans interested so the sport just doesn't die out completely, and move forward. The same has happened in Formula One in the last couple of years. Since the new owners have come in, Liberty Media have come in, they've started to look at things like sprint races to determine the grid. The cars are changing this year, different size wheels, closer racing, all of these things. Why is football... And by the way, I put this as a poll on social media a few weeks back, and it was amazing the response, but not the response of the poll, forget that. It was amazing the response of the comments. How many people were like, we can't change the game. Well, you can change the game as long as the bodies, the governing bodies change the game. Yes, you can. No, we can't change the game. It is as it is for the last 150 years. This is, no. Says who?
Yeah.
Why can't you change the format of the game? Why can't you tweak the format of the game? Why can't you make, you see in water breaks in IPL, Indian Super League. Now, those things are geared for broadcasters. What I'm saying is, have a think about gearing certain elements for the audience, for the fans. Because if you are having, and we are having this conversation, and people are talking about it on social media saying, I just want to watch the highlights, or I don't watch the games anymore, the young generation's disinterest, that should ring alarm bells for the powers that be. And anyone who is arrogant enough to sit and say, the legacy, we can't change the format, you deserve to die with the dinosaurs. It's as simple as that. You end up over time becoming the same people that say, why do we need motor cars? We've got horses. Let's ride around on horses. Really? Okay. So we don't need motor cars anymore. Can you imagine telling people now around the world saying, by the way, you drive cars, that's crazy. We have this new invention. It's called a horse. Yeah. Fuel prices are going up. There's a chip shortage. You've got to wait 2 years for your car. You're polluting the atmosphere and the environment. You should ride a horse. Can you imagine how people would look at you nowadays?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same look that was over 100 years ago when people said, let's move to the motor car. And it's the same look that the certain group of people involved in football and fans of football say, you cannot change the format. You cannot tweak the format. Why? Now, the next thing you'd probably say is, what would you do? The answer is, I don't know, because I haven't thought it through. However, you have to start looking at things like, should there be a point for who's leading the first half, a point for who's leading the second half, and a point for who wins the game? Or a point for the first half, point for the second half, and 3 points for winning the game? You know, little things like that. Maybe there should be more jeopardy. Maybe a free kick is worth more than an open play goal, or whatever. You know, a set piece is worth less. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. All I'm saying is that it needs thought through, and that's the reason why there are viewers, especially of the young generation, who are tuning out, turning off.
Do you also think is this, I personally, because I started following football, I don't know, like now 7-8 years ago, whatever. So initially I found this that, I don't know if this is just an Indian thing, because you grow up watching cricket and you're always fascinated by, the sixes and the fours and the boundaries and everything. So whenever someone starts watching football, and in India, I see this a lot. Yes, some of my friends who don't watch football, they say no one is scoring a goal. So why are you seeing this match? Or, when is a goal going to happen or something like that? So do you think that conversations like these or changes like these are important? Because not just from an old new generation point of view, but it's also time to change with the whole narrative and with the whole digitalization that we've had, and with the whole of series of changes in general we've had. Like sports have seen fundamental changes across different formats, as you mentioned with cricket, and T20 format was laughed upon in the 80s or in the 90s, and now it's here, and now it's booming, and it sells, and still cricket. So I think that's important. Yeah, that needs to be thought about. What do you think about the new generation's point on instant gratification? Do you think that this is the flip side of that coin? That
I think there's a certain part of it is instant gratification. Yeah. I think the accusation that all the young generation cares about is instant gratification is actually a little bit misguided. And the reason I say that is we all want to be entertained. Yeah. So if I'm going to give you 90 minutes of my time, in that 90 minutes, tell me how many thrills I'm going to get. Now, obviously, that's a little bit difficult because we're talking about live sport. Yeah. So the reason that I think the young generation has gone for instant gratification is basically because they're saying, look, there were 3 fabulous highlights from last night's game. Why should I waste 90 minutes watching those 3 fabulous highlights when I can just the next morning or afterwards, or even during the game, you can get it now.
Key moments,
clips, key moments. Why should I waste 90 minutes of my time? Because what has happened, and I think we spoke about this when we last were on air, the whole landscape is fragmented now. When I grew up, there were only 3 TV channels. Yeah. You go and ask your grandparents, probably the similar in India. Yeah. And now there are, I was going to say thousands. It's not thousands. It's hundreds of thousands. There's millions of potential outlets. There are certainly thousands of platforms which are trying to capture the attention of the consumer, which is you and I. So what are you providing? Which is, so going back to live sport, football in the 80s, when I was growing up, the only live matches you could see, domestic matches, were the FA Cups. League games were not broadcast live. It was highlights. So there was no competition in that particular regard. And then all of these other sports were not big. You know, mountain biking didn't exist. Triathlons, live broadcast of triathlons, that didn't exist. So, and then on top of that, what you had in the summers was you had a lot of live tournament action, which was great. So we grew up watching all the Olympic stars because we could see them, and World Cup stars because you could watch every World Cup game. So there wasn't a lot of competition for my attention when I was a child. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now that's completely different. It's completely different nowadays. So this is why I'm talking about the format. You know, do you have to start looking at playmakers and giving them bigger exposure in the game? So any player that goes in, you know, we talk about now VAR and was it a 50-50 challenge and did he bring that player down? Forget all that. These are marginal decisions. Forget that. Maybe we should be looking at the big picture and saying, you know, anyone that fouls a playmaker, send them off for 10 minutes. Sin bins. Yeah. That's how radical we need to be to say, right, you touch, you know, every time Leo Messi goes for goal and dribbles his way from the halfway line, what are opposition teams trying to do? What have they historically tried to do for over the last decade with Leo Messi? You know, if there's a danger, bring him down because he's that threatening. Now, Messi isn't the only playmaker in the world. There's other playmakers, but teams and coaches go out to frustrate the opposition, especially if that team is inferior to the opposition. Yeah. You will go out to nullify the threats of that spectacular player or the playmakers in that team. So you see what I'm saying? I'm driving at the format and saying maybe we should be making tweaks whereby you cannot spoil the spectacle. Maybe we should be allowing the playmakers to strut their stuff and do their thing because no one wants to see a 0-0 draw, including me.
And that's true.
Including me.
And see, what I've seen is like I've been playing FIFA. I don't know. Do you play FIFA? Or are you? Or have you reached that age where
I type like this on the keyboard? You know, so my hand-eye coordination is non-existent.
We have to. I have to get you play FIFA sometime. You know, I'll definitely try.
I like the real world. You know, I like to see real football matches, not the virtual world.
Yeah, see, I'm all for it, and you're talking to a football fanatic. But so what they do in FIFA is they've now made some quick play modes wherein you have different, the fundamentals of. They've changed certain types of modes in which you can play. So you can have, let's say, you score a goal and then one random player is ejected from the team, and let's say you keep a possession in one area of the box, then the chances of if you score a goal, then it's counted as 2. So there are things like that. If you take, let's say, 80% possession and then you score a goal, then that is counted as more. So things like that. So these changes, I don't know. They tried out in the virtual environment. I don't know if this could be worked out. It could be certainly worked out if they got down to it. But yeah, that's crazy. And what I have to ask you this also. You are a Newcastle fan. Newcastle 300. What was it? 300 billion takeover. The numbers are
300 million, 305 million.
305 million, sorry.
Which by the way, in the modern day game is a steal. It's a steal that a Premier League football club like Newcastle, with the fan base that it's got, 300 million, that's a steal, an absolute steal.
It's crazy. And they've got 3 new signings this January window.
Five players they brought in.
They won yesterday. Did you watch yesterday's match?
Yes, it was brilliant. It was real high tempo. It was good stuff. It was deserved goals, deserved 3 points. Yeah, it was fabulous.
It's crazy.
It was really good. And I'm a bigger believer in momentum as well. You know, when that kind of stuff gets going, that's 2 wins on the bounce now. They've got another home game at the weekend. Momentum is a huge thing, and it works in both directions. And actually, momentum is a lesson for life. You know, when you're on the front foot, keep pushing and keep going because the wind is in your back. When you're on the back foot, you know, the wind is against you. You tend to go backwards, and life's a struggle. I'm a big believer that when you get on a kind of a roll, as the saying goes, to keep pushing and keep going. Don't rest, keep going, because you want to try and the wind will be against you again at some point in the future. But just keep trying to roll forward, you know, we can and extend that momentum. And that's Newcastle are the same. They've got the crowd behind them. There's a feel-good factor around the city. It's a one-team city. People forget that. It's a one-team city. Most teams in the Premier League are not one-team cities. You know, there might be a one-team town, but they're not a one-team city.
Yeah.
Manchester, London, you know, the Liverpool, two-team cities.
London has a crazy amount of clubs. Let me come back to what you just said. You know, momentum is also something that could be thought on from a life point of view as well. Do you find that are there some hacks that Joe Morrison has figured out on how to sustain that period of poor moment, or when, you know, the tide is against you? And sometimes it just happens that you're trying anything and it isn't working, and it feels like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. So what are your hacks on it?
That's a great way to put it, actually, hacks, because normally when I get asked a question similar to this, it's like advice, and I hate dishing out advice, you know, and I get pushed on it, and it's like, my life is very different to your life.
Yeah.
And I have taken, certainly with regards to my career, I have taken huge risks with regards to my career, and not all, but majority of those risks have paid off. But that might not be for you. You might go and take the same risks that I have, and it could all fail. So I would never advocate that. In terms of hacks, what I would say is, look, as you probably well know, and you see on my social media, I love the mountains. I did Kilimanjaro last summer. I went up Kilimanjaro, which was really tough. Base camp of Everest. I think what those things, and any of your viewers who are watching this will understand, who are hikers or who are climbers, will understand, is you cannot at any point during that, however long it takes, let's say it's a week to go up to the summit, you cannot at any point focus on the summit. That's not how it works. You ask any climber about that. It just doesn't work like that. You have to break it down into little pieces. So I'll give you an example. When I did base camp of Everest, I think it was day 4 or day 5. I was with a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, and he was a terrible snorer. Like at nighttime, now you're exhausted, there's altitude sickness.
God,
and every night when we were getting into these little tea huts to sleep in our sleeping bags, it was cold. It was bloody cold. He was like, and this guy could sleep through an earthquake, you know, a volcano erupting. So I didn't get any sleep. So it got to a head where I'm exhausted. It was day 4, and I think I'd slept 30 minutes the night before. And he woke up and bounced out of bed full of life and energy and morning. So, and even I was the only way I could stop him, but it only lasted for 10 minutes before he would start again, was to throw my pillows over onto his bed so that it shook him enough that he stopped snoring. Anyway, cut a long story short, that morning I decided that's it. I can't go any further. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted. I'm physically exhausted. The altitude sickness was getting to me. I was cold, hungry. But what I did was, I remember saying to myself, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get changed, put my boots on, and I'm going to go for breakfast. And then I'm going to tell the team leader, that's it. Thank you very much. I've come this far, but I'm going to head back.
Yeah.
And I had breakfast, and I felt a little bit better about myself, you know, had a cup of tea and felt a little bit better. And I thought, you know what? This is still the day I'm quitting, by the way. I'm going to go to, because every morning we had a tea break that was kind of halfway between where we started and where we finished up for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to the tea break, sit with the team, have a cup of tea, and then I'm going to say thank you very much and quit. It was a nice day. So I got to the tea break, and then I thought, right, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the lunch. So you see the pattern that's emerging. Yeah. Right. So when you're facing those headwinds, to answer your question, you have to break it down into little pieces. And I've had that in my life. And all I do is I'm just going to get through today. And then tomorrow, you know what? I'm not worried about more negativity coming my way, more problems coming my way at the weekend. I'm not worried about the weekend. I haven't even got to the weekend. We haven't even got past Thursday yet, you know? Yeah. So there are 2 things that I always keep in my mind. Your shit day is exactly that. It's your shit day. That does not guarantee that tomorrow is also a shit day. Yeah? Because it's about your perspective. Yeah?
Yeah.
If you haven't slept like I didn't on the way up Everest, my perspective on that bad day was worse than, let's just take it to, if I'd been at sea level, no altitude, had a good night's sleep, right? And then someone said, by the way, we are going to be hiking, whatever it was, 11 kilometers that day, and we're going to be rising 2,000 feet. Would I have been in a different mood? Of course I would.
Yeah.
Because I was fresh. So it's about controlling your perspective on what's going wrong, what's shit in your life. And I've always had this measure for many, many years, which is there are 7 days in a week, right?
Yeah.
Try and make sure that the majority of those days are good days, because you will have bad days. And thankfully, and I'm lucky, thanks to the powers that be, I know every week I'm going to have one bad day. I know that.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. You know, I just go through each day and then I go, oh, today's a bad day. Right. That's my one bad day. I know the other 6 are going to be good. So, by the way, it might not be 6 for you. There might be only 4 for you. As long as you can have the majority of that week, which are positive days, something good comes out of it. You know, you didn't miss your bus.
Yeah.
You know, you got the promotion at work. That bloody Z-list celebrity that you were trying to email to get on your podcast has replied to you. They are little wins, but it still makes it a positive day. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you're going through a tough time, try and get 4 positive days, knowing that you're going to have 3 bad ones. And that's how I just target it and measure it. But that's my own little thing. Everyone has their own little thing. But in summary, break it down into little pieces and go, today's a shit day. I've just got to battle through today, because when I wake up tomorrow morning, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I could get a phone call to someone saying, hey, do you know that job you applied to 2 months ago and they disappeared? Yeah. Hey, you know, we talked 2 months ago. Do you want to, that makes sense?
That makes sense. And you see, like from both the conversations that we have had and this one also, what I really like about you is some people have this constant need of fabricating things as positive always. So you are the kind of a person that will say that it's a shit day and today is a bad day, and just accept it.
Oh, by the way, is it my most hated word in the dictionary? I know that I use it sometimes, and I try not. I stop myself and go, Joe, what the fuck are you doing? The word amazing. Everything is amazing. Yeah. This is amazing. This is the most amazing meal I've ever had. This is the most amazing crazy, sunset. Man. Oh, shut up, will you? Yeah. Because, by the way, what you're doing, and this is on a serious note, what you do when you constantly talk like that and you constantly project your lifestyle, especially on social media, like that, is you lose the authenticity. And that's really important, because I don't believe that every single thing that you do and that happens in your life is amazing. I have shit days. Yeah.
That's true.
It's like, this is not the most amazing cup of tea that I've ever had in the morning. It's pretty damn good because I made it, but it's not amazing. And you know what? This is my second cup of chai today. And the first one I made was terrible, because I put the hot water in and then I went off and forgot about it, and I came back and it was cold. And it's not amazing. It was shit. So you're absolutely right. I think so. It's not about it's authenticity is what it is. It's saying that, look, things are not going great. And someone actually approached me a few months back and said, have you ever thought about doing a sort of like a series of films, short films, like YouTube and stuff, that are more anti-hero-esque? And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, I think that you, and they were talking about Budgie as well. They said, you know, everyone posts pictures of their smashed avocado and poached egg on sourdough bread in the morning. You know, that's their breakfast. Whereas we can imagine that there are times when you are having the greasy, oily, not healthy. And I'm like, yeah, I do have that sometimes. Usually once or twice a week, actually. I'm not all smashed avocados and gymnasiums and all that kind of, so it's about authenticity, I think, is the lesson that comes out of that.
That's true. And it also like, why do you constantly need to have that pressure of having that amazing life, having the best day, or everything just going your way? Sometimes it could be shit and you could accept that and move on. I mean, that's the way you authentically are able to appreciate the good days. Yeah.
Be real.
That's true.
Do I live a healthy lifestyle? Yes, I do. But there are some nights where I just go, fuck it. Let's get a pizza in.
Yeah.
And I don't beat myself up about it. Now, if I was having pizza every night, and not looking after myself in any way, shape or form, that's a different matter altogether. True. You know, my late father used to always say, don't be a slave to anything. And it's true. And what he meant by that is, you know, you like a beer, fine, go get drunk. But if you're drinking and getting drunk every night, you're a slave to drink. If you're ordering pizzas every night, you're a slave to pizzas. You know, if you're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you're a slave to work. If you go to the gymnasium 2 hours a day, every day of the week, you're a slave to the gymnasium. It's not mentally healthy, in my opinion.
That's true. I really appreciate those words. Tell me, Joe, what do you think? Is it a totally random question, but is it good to be or better to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond?
To answer your question, and it's a great question, by the way, I think the most important thing is the realization of who you are and where you are. Okay. We all start off small. I was a small fish in a small pond to begin with. You know, my career, regional, junior reporter in a regional broadcaster. Yeah. Then you become a big reporter. You've made a little bit of a name for yourself, but you're still in a small pond. You're in regional. I think then it's about understanding where you are at that particular point in time. Because if you don't, you will never push on and become that small fish in a big pond. You need to keep increasing the size of your ponds. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And
there are people here, by the way, just in the UAE. I know people and broadcasters and here in the UAE who are more than happy to be here in the UAE. You know, nice sunshine, nice lifestyle, tax-free, all the rest of it. But they have no ambition to go to a bigger pond, to go to the UK, for example. I've kind of done it the other way around. But, you know, it's like Asia is a pretty big pond. So I'm more than happy with what I've done and the way I've done it in that particular regard. But I think you need to always have a realization of you know, what am I? Am I now a big fish in a small pond? Have I outgrown this pond? Then I need to move.
What point do you think, Joe, is or is it very personal for everyone? But it could be very personal for everyone. You know, this realization of, am I a big fish now for this pond? But do you think, according to your experience, there are some markers or there are some literal signs from where you can pick, okay, I've stopped growing? Or like, it's one thing to be ambitious, it's one thing to be over ambitious, and it's just plain healthy to I just sometimes feel, and I've read and I've heard some philosophers or, you know, people talk about this, that chase difficult things or, you know, try to do difficult things. In the process of them, you figure out who you really are and who you really want to be. Play difficult games. That allows you to discover.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I'm no philosopher. So Budgie's the philosopher. No, I think the most important thing is, or what I always ask myself is, am I comfortable? Okay. So doing what I'm doing, is this comfortable? Is this easy for me? If it's easy, you need to start thinking about what you're doing next. You know, going and doing the Facebook project was a huge challenge to me. It was a tech company. They did things very different, operated very differently. Audience engagement was a huge part of what we did. So it was very uncomfortable, especially at the beginning. Yeah. So, I think comfort is probably the answer to your question. If you feel comfortable and if you don't go get those little butterflies in your stomach by what you're doing, you need to move. You need to be thinking about, where am I going next? What am I doing next? Or, you know, where's the next challenge? Sometimes, by the way, that's not the nature of your work. Sometimes that's the nature of your environment and the people you're surrounded by. Okay.
And what exactly
surround yourself with people who challenge you. Okay. You know? And I must admit, it's really hard. So when I was doing the Facebook project, you know, I was surrounded by a production team, very dedicated production team, and really good people as well. They, or majority of them, actually, no, all of them, I think, had come from traditional TV where the anchor is the be all and end all, the last word, you know, all of that. And it was hard at the beginning to encourage them to challenge me, to say, no, I disagree. And then over a period of time, and they all did it, you know, they all had a better understanding over a period of time, they came to that and were like, I disagree. I challenge you. No, that's not right. Joe, you're chatting shit. That's just stupid, Joe. That's a crazy idea. No, forget about it. You need that. You need people to, to surround yourself with people who are, by the way, this is not about saying no. There's a difference between being challenged and just everything being a no. Like, if it's the same as we chatted just before we started this about COVID and lockdowns, well, yeah, it's very easy the solution to COVID and lockdowns to just lock down forever. Then no one dies. Well, actually, what you'll find is people start dying of other things. So, as they're trapped in their houses, So it's about being challenged, which is different to just the answer to everything is no.
Let's also talking with you. This is why I like talking with you, and I mentioned this again. You are at least in some sense a breeze of authenticity, if nothing else. What I want to wrap this conversation up with is that dealing with criticism. We talked about this last time also, and I spoke with a gentleman who's like a bit aged in the previous episode. How to deal with criticism and all that.
He was a what? Sorry.
He was a psychologist, and he wrote a book on criticism, and he's been a professional speaker and trainer and all of that. So he talked about understanding criticism, not taking it to your heart and everything. But I still feel that sometimes when we were talking about this being authenticity and being real, so people struggle with that in a sense that they're afraid to be real, and the pressures of social media, and it's inherent, right? And you didn't have that growing up. So do you have anything, not textbook advice, but how to actually differentiate between what's real and what's not? Like why always have this constant need of approval for social media or having that perfect life?
The easy answer is not give a and you know what? That is the line, and that is the ridiculous laugh that actually runs through my head when I am criticized in that particular regard. The only criticism that's important is in a work environment is your boss. Because they keep you gainfully employed. So if they criticize it, then you have to take note of it, and you have to understand it, and you have to understand where they're coming from and why. And then obviously your close members of your family. If your mother knows you better than anyone, and if your mother says you're being an idiot, then you're being an idiot. But if the wider world, and especially the social media world, is saying you're being an idiot, then who cares? And the most important thing, I think, is being self-effacing and being able to laugh. What I find absolutely fascinating, in particular during the last year or two, is Netflix, not just Netflix, many platforms. So many of them, the viewership of these 1 hour stand-up comedy specials is going through the roof.
True.
Yet at the same time, the criticism of what comedians say is also going through the roof.
Oh, that's crazy.
So who is right? Now, to me, it's like, wait a second. If people were turning off and saying, oh, I'm really sorry, this particular comedian, what he says is outrageous, it's unacceptable, that's not humor, that's not funny, that's not comedy. Hold on a second, but you watched it.
And you laughed at it. At that point, you laughed at it.
Or you if you didn't laugh at it, then you certainly reacted to it. Sometimes it's not about laughing at it. Sometimes you might wince at it and go, "Oh my God, that was a little bit close to the bone." That one. So that's the mantra. And I just finished reading a book about the guy who was the senior script editor at Top Gear, BBC Top Gear. During their most successful years. And it's really fascinating to get this inside perspective on what was the most successful car show on the planet ever. So, and he said that basically, as they became more successful, more criticism came. And it's amazing how many, even football fans, say that I could coach this team, and they're not saying it just as a kind of throwaway line. They genuinely believe in themselves that they could be professional football players, if they had a bit more skill, of course, Or they could be a professional football coach if they were given the opportunity. And it's always about, I never got the opportunity to play when I was younger or to be coached. And I never got the opportunity to become a football manager or football coach, except on PlayStation. So they couldn't. My answer is always, you couldn't. And I'll tell you why you couldn't.
Yeah.
Anyone can become a professional player physically. Yeah. Anyone. True. If they were given the right environment, the right coaching staff, the right physical trainer, et cetera, anyone can do that. The bit that they cannot do is handle pressure. What is pressure? Pressure is criticism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
If you're the manager of Real Madrid and you've lost 3 games in a row, do you not think your entire world on and off the internet is being bombarded with negativity and criticism?
That's true.
So that's why you're seeing a large number of great top ex-players coming through as coaches. They're succeeding, and coaches who have fabulous credentials but maybe weren't a big name player in the world of football are struggling because they've never faced the same level of criticism as a top player. Can you imagine the criticism Zidane got after the World Cup headbutt in 2006? Can you imagine?
Unimaginable. No, I can't.
So put that alongside the criticism of Real Madrid losing a game. Do you think he cares? He's seen it all before.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got, he's probably got a boat moored off of Saint-Tropez. He's got a beautiful family, beautiful wife, lovely life. I get fired. Yeah, I get my payoff, from being sacked. Why do I care?
Yeah.
So coming back to your original point, being able to laugh it off is so important. Why do you care? I really don't care. There are people who are much bigger in the world of a lot of people who are much bigger in the world of football than I am, in the world of football broadcasting than I am. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care what you think and what you say and all the rest of it. It's like, and by the way, you want to criticize them? Yeah, go ahead. I don't care, because we were brought up, I don't know if you have this saying when you were kids as well, but we had this saying brought up, and I really believe this with regards to social media, which is why I hate cancel culture. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And that reminded to everyone when it comes to social media. You can call me anything you want, by the way, and I don't care. I won't be offended by it. Might raise an eyebrow, but I won't be offended by it. However, if you arrive at my front door with a stick to beat me, whoa, that's a different thing altogether. That's unacceptable, very unacceptable.
That's the transition. I think that's been lost. And I don't know, I hope people do learn it. Some people learn it the hard way, and going through all of that seriousness, holding yourself, too seriously all the time. And eventually you do realize that nobody cares. So
exactly. And there are some young presenters out there, I can tell you the day they graduate to be real anchors, to go from being a reporter presenter to being an anchor. And it's the day they stop retaliating to negativity on social media. If you cannot handle the negativity on social media, you cannot be the guy who's anchoring a World Cup final. You can't do it, because not every person that watches you likes what you do. That's just the world. Yeah. Did everyone in your class at school like you?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So what happened at school? Did you stop going to school?
No. Yeah.
You've arrived at college.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going from the college environment into the workplace environment. Let's call it the corporate environment.
Yeah.
So at all of these stages in your life, junior school, senior school, college, and then the workplace, at any of those points when you had that percentage, and it'll have increased or decreased during that time. It might have been 20% of your class in junior school hated you. It might have been 30% in high school. It might have been only 10% in college. When you go through those stages, did you stop at any of those stages and say, I'm not going to college because when I was at high school, 20% of the class didn't like me? The same principle applies. Why are you wasting your energy on that 20%? Why don't you focus your energy on the 80% that actually like you? And that's also I think, a good mantra for life. People say, work on your weaknesses. No, No, don't work on your weaknesses. Fuck your weaknesses. You have strengths that I don't have. So work on your strengths. Yeah, you might be a fast runner, and let's put it into an Olympics term, thing. You might be a fast runner, and I might be good at high jump. So what? I have to focus on my running, do I? And you should focus on your high jump?
Jumping. No. Yeah. That makes sense.
Just forget about the high jump. You're never ever going to win a gold medal at the high jump. So focus on the running where you actually might win a medal. And I'll focus on the high jump where I can win a medal, and I'll forget about the running. That's life, man. Don't work on your weaknesses. Work on your strengths.
I think that sums it up. That wraps this episode. Always a pleasure, man. I think talking to you on this through this podcast also, and apart from before recording, we were talking. I really like these conversations. I think they allow in somewhat in this whole mess of I don't know if it's fair to call it a mess, but whatever, this whole traffic of information that we are bombarded with every day. Some things like these conversations, noise, exactly, yeah. White noise also sometimes. You don't even know that you're thinking about it. You don't even know that it's present. And
there's a certain noise. You're absolutely right. It's noise. It's like one thing people don't know, and I don't think I've ever told you this, is I never watch the news. Do I know what's going on in the world? Yes, I do, because I'll have conversations with other people who'll say, oh, have you heard about the Russians parked on the border with Ukraine? And we're like, oh, right, okay. And they're going to invade. So I'm aware. I do not have, I put music videos on, or sometimes just music. First thing in the morning when I wake up. My brother watches the news first thing in the morning.
I think
I'm not interested. I'm not. It's like, what's going on in Ukraine? How does it affect me? What can I do about it?
Yeah, I totally relate to that. That's awesome, Joe. Talking to you was so much fun. I always enjoy it. I hope you do as well. Now I'll let you go do whatever you were doing previously. Thank you so much for being on this podcast.
I'm going to read the news.
And this brings us to the end of this really awesome episode of the Most Serious Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it did add some value in your life. We will be back again with another interesting conversation pretty soon.